Okay, we're going to take two on this one, Brenna. We had some tech issues. Let's see if we get the same feedback or if we've solved it.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, and I can hear you once, which
Okay,
is
wonderful.
perfect,
Great.
right?
Okay. Well, like I was saying, active inventory is incredibly low, only to be outdone by March of this year. We're down 74% from 2019. When we're looking at this data, 2019 is kind of what we call like the last normal year. Prior to 2020, the Colorado real estate market for this past several years has been very predictable, not necessarily in the exact numbers, but in the patterns and the trends and when things heat up and when they slow down. Seasonality, we're always very in tune with what's going on. And then with like so many other things in our worlds, 2020 threw all of that out the window, and 2021 is following suit in some regards to that. So that's why we don't always compare to 2020 when we're looking for that normal. So that's why we're looking at the 2019 to see kind of how far off we really are here. So obviously, inventory is a huge issue. Arapahoe County being the lowest supply of 0.29 months. So that's just a couple of days. A quarter of our inventory sits in that $600,000 to $800,000 price range. When we look at Greater Metro Denver on the whole, our average price range is right around that $700,000. So a quarter of our inventory being in that makes a lot of sense. Now, for people looking outside of those price ranges, there are places that you can get homes for under $700,000. So don't be scared away by the average. It's just that we've seen some higher numbers, especially in the Denver County, in Arapahoe County, and that pushes the average up. $400,000 to $600,000 has the lowest supply of inventory, with like a week. And so that makes sense as well. That's a very, very competitive market. A lot of move up buyers, first time home buyers are right kind of in that price point. So some interesting statistics. And then we are still holding strong at over 5,000 units sold this month. So I'll go more into that when we look at the actual graphs, because these numbers thrown out, I don't think make a lot of sense unless you can visualize them. Something I do want to point out is that detached single family homes sold for over or about average of $95,000 more in November this year than they did last year. So that's incredible appreciation. And it's definitely a conversation to have if you're trying to outsave the market, especially with interest rates going up soon. We think, according to the Fed, your money's not going to go as far because money is very cheap right now with interest rates historically so low, and we're still seeing that appreciation. So even if prices stay the exact same and interest rates go up, then you're going to be paying more for that same price. And homes are going to continue to go up more than likely in some capacity. So just something to think about. I know there's a lot of talk out there about what's going to happen, and I'm just going to wait for the market to correct or for the market to shift. But truly, I feel like people that have been saying that probably have been waiting since about 2012.
Yeah, and if you've been waiting at all, right, the market's just moving past you, and it's not about, needing to make a jump. If you're looking at this from, well, gosh, the only time I'm going to get a great deal is if I buy when the market crashes. And that's just not real. There are great deals to be had in any market. You have to know what to look for. You have to be constantly looking when we're talking about, real estate or just investments in general, right? If we were to look at just the stock market and somebody trying to time the stock market, well, I'm going to buy it at its lowest and sell it at its highest. Well, that sounds good in theory, but it never actually works that way. Real estate's very much the same way. And in order to get the good deals, to time it right, well, you have to be in the market on a regular basis. To get into the market, it's a big deal, right? An extra $95,000 in equity is huge.
Well, and last year, even the economists said this may be the top of the market, and not that it was going to come crashing down, but that it was going to start plateauing. But
Yep.
Even if you bought last year in November when the market was still incredibly hot and everyone thought there's no way it can go higher, you have $95,000 of equity in your house after 1 year on average. So, to Matt's point, it obviously, if it's not right for you and your situation, don't fit a square peg in a round hole. But if you're just waiting for the perfect storm, you might miss it. Is kind of what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. The economists, and I remember those conversations are like, hey, we think we're going to be at the peak of this. We don't think it's going to crash, but we think it's going to taper off. Well, $95,000 appreciation over last year says that the economists are wrong, right? The folks who study this on a regular basis, their predictions were wrong. Anything I predict is probably going to be, I guess 50-50 chance. Either I predict it right or I predict it wrong. But it is just speculation. So you have to just kind of take that for a grain of salt. If you're looking for a good deal, get into the market because there are deals to be had.
Absolutely. So this is our market snapshot that we look at every month. Green is active inventory, blue is pending or under contract homes, and then red is sold. So if you look back on the left side of the graph here at 2019, you can see that the green line or in that green hill is above the pending and sold. And it makes this nice little arc like we would expect. 2021 looks a little bit different because it is below the line and we are, at 2,100 homes on the market, detached and attached for all of Denver Metro. So that is very low. Now, the tapering off of the solds and under contracts, that's pretty normal. As you can see, we've got this cyclical kind of wave going on. It hasn't been as extreme as previous years because of that inventory being so low, we're still seeing people buying that maybe didn't want to or couldn't compete in the summer. We have just an influx, or not influx, but we have way more demand than we have supply. So that's why the pending and solds have not come down as much as maybe they typically do. But with the active inventory being so low, people just have less options. Things are moving very quickly.
Yeah, the record pace for units sold or homes sold last year was pretty astounding considering everything that was going on. And when we look at where we're at this year, the year over year change for sold homes, we're not far off from where we were at a record sale. So when people say, well, there's just nothing on the market, there's nothing staying on the market, but new homes are coming on the market every day. You just have to be quick, take a look, and if you're buying, move. If you're selling, that pressure of really having to get the right price, you've got a wider line there to play with as far as the range you could potentially price your home. So not that it's making it any easier, but you've got a little bit of leeway when it comes to pricing your home to sell.
Well, but with that being said, too, I know, we look at this and November is very, very close in active inventory to March and May. So it would be easy to say, oh, okay, inventory is that low, so we can price our homes like we're in the middle of the spring selling season. But there's a few factors, and I'm going to scroll through here a little bit, that make that a little bit different. So yes, active inventory is incredibly low, but something that Matt and I were talking about is days in MLS or days in market. So this is kind of our speed of the market. And if you look back here, March, it was still a little bit higher, but in May and June, that kind of peak selling season, we were down to 10 days on the market. Now, our active inventory from October to November took a big dive, but we actually went up a day and a half in days in MLS. Now, if you look historically, we are still incredibly low. If we look again back to that 2019, November is typically about 33 days, 30 days. So we're half of that. But it's interesting that even though the inventory plummeted, that days on market is holding strong. Now, Matt and I were talking, there's just some homes on the market that are that the market is rejecting. So it's their condition, it's that they're overpriced. So there's always going to be a set of homes that aren't going to sell. When we only have 2,000 homes, that's a bigger percentage of those homes. So that can skew things a little bit. I also feel like buyers are incredibly aware of value, especially after going through the last 2 years and seeing all of this appreciation happening. And there's less buyers in the market because of the time of year it is. With that being said, the buyers that we see typically in Q4 approaching the holidays, there's less of them, but they are very committed, because if you had your perfect time to move, it probably wouldn't be the week before Christmas or during the holiday season. It would be when the kids are out of school and it's nice outside. So yes, you might have less buyers, but they are ready to move. They have a reason they want to move, and they're very committed to getting to that closing table.
Yeah, if you're going to be looking out at homes, right? When cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation is your family member coming over and adding all that stress in, you're very committed to buying a home, right?
Yeah.
That's just going to be the outcome there. It's interesting to look at the showing data, and we've got the ability to break it down by zip codes and price points, and how many showings are happening in a specific price point. So again, these are big general numbers. As we look at the Denver Metro as a whole, real estate's nothing if not hyper local, because your house is unique. It's unique to you. It's unique to its location. The house around the corner, it may even be the same floor plan. It's just going to be a different house, right? Different features, different components to it. So that's where it matters when we look at all of the data at the very granular level.
Yes, absolutely. And again, these are not massive changes, rock slide kind of things, but as a buyer and a seller, there's these small changes make a big difference in your strategy. So this summer, you were literally having to go as a buyer on your lunch in a 15-minute showing window, writing the earnest money check in your car, just very frantic, very, very fast, throwing the kitchen sink at everything. And as sellers, they had a lot of leeway as far as how pushy they could be with the price. And I'll show some graphs to that in a second. Sellers, you're still going to get top dollar because we've had that appreciation. So you're reaping the benefits of all of those comps that have closed, that now have appreciated your home. But if you only get 5 offers on your home instead of 20, that's normal. That for this time of year, that's what you can expect. So we just don't want sellers to have a false expectation and miss the boat because they're waiting for their 21st offer before they accept one, when that's just not the market we're in right now, even though we're still in an incredibly strong, incredible sellers market. It's different than it was in June.
Well, and as you start getting into double digit offers, they all start to blend together and it's hard to differentiate one from another. You can still have the same basic outcome with, 2, 3, 4 offers that you can with 20 offers, when it comes to that price. And it's interesting. You and I know a lot of real estate agents, and I always found it interesting in the markets that we've been in the last couple of years, where we see people bragging about a record sale price for the neighborhood. It's like, well, okay, that's great, but give it a week or two, and that's no longer going to be the record. The new record's going to be set. That's just what we're seeing in an appreciating market. So, gold star there for it, but it's not going to last, right? Because the market's doing what it does.
Yes, absolutely. I can pull up the graph here in a second, but to Matt's point about new homes coming on the market, they're actually coming onto the market very similarly paced to 2020 and even 2019. That's one metric that's actually kind of on pace with what we're used to seeing. So yes, new homes are coming onto the market, but we just have such a deficit in our supply that they're just being swallowed up. So any home that is turnkey, that is shown well, that is priced appropriately, those homes are not lasting more times than not. So to Matt's point, there are people are selling their homes. There's just more people buying. And to that point, if we look here, typically we do not hit a 5,000 homes sold in a month until the summer. So until about May. And then, if we're looking back at 2019, September is when we dropped back. So we only have a few months where we hit that super high volume. This year, we started over 5,000 in March. And I have been saying, and other people have been saying, maybe we're going to dip off early this year. And that's just not the case. We are still over 5,000 and just barely. But going into December, we have still, March through November, been over 5,000 homes sold, which is pretty incredible and means that we're up about 7% year over year, with 2020 being the one that a lot of people thought this is as high as we can go.
Yeah, I think if we go back to a previous video that we did, I made a prediction that said that, I think we're going to sell about the same number of homes. We just cramming them all into the first part of the year, and we're borrowing from the second half. So I think we're going to see it taper off. Right. Well, where's my shoe? I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth. It didn't happen that way. Right. Again, looking at these numbers on a regular basis, making my predictions, didn't come out, right? Did not come to fruition. It's okay. Anytime somebody's making predictions, right, understand that they're trying to predict the future. And I don't know about your crystal ball, Brenna. Mine's usually cloudy and it doesn't show the future real clear.
Yeah, no. So we'll see what happens in December. At this point, I'm fully anticipating it being over 5,000 because that's not what I would expect. But these last couple of years have just kind of done what they want. So we'll see how we end the year. With that being said, if you're a buyer right now, typically, if you look January, February, we have a slower start to the year. And every year for the past several years, it's kind of bumped up a little bit and bumped up a little bit and bumped up a little bit. Being in the industry, it was like, okay, between Thanksgiving and New Year's, it was really quiet. And then you even have a couple weeks into January and then things start moving again. This year, I think we had about a week and a half of slow, and then it was off to the races. And I think it's going to be even shorter this year. As soon as people cheers to 2022, they're going to be back on the market. So if you're a buyer right now and if you have the potential to get out there right now, you might be able to get a better deal because you have a little bit less competition and before the Fed does whatever they're going to do. And again, that's another crystal ball that I surely do not have access to. But that they keep saying that is coming. So that's going to affect things as well. So it's cold. It's the week before Christmas. It's all of these things happening, but there's potentially some great opportunities for buyers right now because I think come January, we're all going to be running again.
Yeah, I think we're going to be off to the races. It tends to follow, oddly enough, right? The Broncos season, when the Broncos are done for the year, people get back into it and saying, hey, I want to go buy my new house now that I'm depressed the Broncos season is over, for however that ends. But, when we look at January closings are an indication of the activity that was going on December, and maybe even November a little bit, because it takes typically, 30 to 45 days to close. So you can see that there are fewer buyers because we have, over the last couple of years, a seasonally, this slow time being in January with those closings. So, I would anticipate, right, there might be fewer buyers, but you got to understand they're probably very motivated, anxious to get under contract and to get a home, right?
Absolutely. Okay, the other thing, so this is what we were talking about a little bit early, just with that appreciation, the $95,000 year over year. So the average sold price, again, it's a wave, but it's an upward trajectory wave. So our average sold price for detached single family in Greater Metro on the whole is 696,000, so just under that 700,000. Now, typically this time of year, we do see a little bit of a decrease, which is totally normal. It'll come back up. Well, we actually saw almost a 3% increase from October, which speaks to the market that we're in, the lack of inventory, all of these things compiling together. So are we at the peak where we were in June as far as that average sold price? Not quite. But this time of year, seasonally, still very high. And as you can see, again, if you bought at the top of the market in 2020 or 2019 or 2018, you're doing pretty well right now if you still own your home with that appreciation, even if there is a little bit of that influx.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about this from not a home buyer or a home seller standpoint, but strictly a home owner standpoint, around something that we call mortgage insurance. And you may remember, right, your mortgage and whether you had mortgage insurance at the time. Not sure if you're still paying attention to it. Let's say that you purchased your home in 2020, and I'm looking at these year over year changes in the graph, right? And I see Adams at 18%, Arapahoe at 24%, Broomfield at 24%. Oh gosh, Denver saw only about 8% increase. But I'm looking at this. If I put 10%, 5%, 15% down to buy my home and I had mortgage insurance, the appreciation over the last 12 months may have just gifted me my 20% equity. And if you haven't already, reach out to your lender, see if you've got mortgage insurance and if it can get dropped off. Now, if you've got an FHA type loan that doesn't drop off, maybe it's quite possible you could refinance and get that mortgage insurance to drop off. Save yourself some money on that monthly budget.
Yeah, that's a great point. That'd be a nice little Christmas gift to yourself to save a couple $100 a month, just for making your payments and for buying a home. So there's definitely a benefit, but if you're someone who is afraid to buy at the top of the market, or pay too much, historically we're showing great growth. And we've said this before, but even if we don't keep at this double digit appreciation, the national average historically is like 4%. And Matt made a joke, right? Only 8% in Denver. That's still great appreciation. And as far as investments go, that's wonderful. So even if we slow down, even if we start to plateau a little bit, this mountain gets a little bit less rigid, we're still in a good spot, more than likely. And again, I don't know what's coming down the pipe, but as far as all the things that we can see, even if appreciation slows down, it's still a good investment.
Yeah, I think if we have this, we continue to do this market stat update for years to come, I don't think that's ever going to change, is our conversation about real estate being a good investment.
Absolutely.
Even in the downturn in 2008, real estate was still a good investment at that time, right? Now, the dynamics looked very different. Still a good investment.
Well, and to bring up that, I've had quite a few people reach out about our foreclosure list, and short sales and opportunities there. And the reality of it is that even if people are behind on their payments, they can usually sell their home with this equity and still come out either even or ahead. So we are not seeing foreclosures happen hardly at all. So it's not this crazy rush to the market with the forbearance moratorium going away. Even for people that haven't paid their mortgage in a little bit, which I definitely don't recommend. If you've owned your home for any length of time, you have enough equity built up and things have appreciated so nicely that you're in a pretty good position. So if you're waiting for the foreclosure deal, you might be waiting for a while, but that is just not something that we're seeing. Back in 2008, there were, and I don't know the numbers, but the number of people that were behind was significantly higher, because ours is like 0% basically. So obviously it was higher than that. But they keep talking about, oh, there's going to be this flood. There's going to be this flood. And that's just not the reality of what we're seeing.
It's interesting. I'm currently helping a client right now going through that short sale process. It's unfortunate. This is a first one I've done in my career. I can't tell you the number of agents that I've spoken to that have conveyed to me they've never been involved in a short sale. All the phone calls that I've got, and the agents who they're like, yeah, I've got a lot of experience with short sale, but it's been years since I've done short sales. It's just not much in the market right now. It's very rare. Now, Brenna, you'll probably remember this, though I don't think you've thought about it in a while. We bought a house. Gosh, it's been 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. We had found a house that we really liked, and we're wanting to write an offer on it. And then when we got in touch with the real estate agent, come to find out the seller hadn't made a mortgage payment in 3 years.
Yep.
They owed back taxes. They owed HOA dues. They owed all of this money because they literally didn't pay anybody for 3 years.
Yeah.
They were still not going to have to short sell that house because of the appreciation in the market. They were still going to walk away with a little bit of cash in their pocket. If you can imagine that, they lived there for 3 years, paid nobody, still walked away with some cash.
And that was 2015. So the market has sped up, increased, gotten stronger, if you will, in that amount of time. Now, definitely don't recommend just not paying your mortgage. But
that's not an investment strategy, right?
No.
Taking that route. That's very detrimental, I think, to your overall net worth.
Yeah, but we were definitely shocked when we heard that 3 years, no payments, no HOA payment, nothing. And they were still going to get everything they needed and a little bit more. So just don't wait for that. If you stumble across it, great. But I would not make that your buying strategy if you need to buy a home in the next couple of years.
Well, and we didn't buy that house, right? We didn't buy that house because the offers they were getting, it still wasn't a good deal, right? It was like, okay, we like the house, but not for that much. Like we could buy something else we like better, which is what we did, right? But even that house, right, didn't make a payment. They're not even upside down, but they're in a situation. It still wasn't just a slam dunk deal. Like, hey, that's a great buy. I'm going to get that one bought, right?
No. So earlier on, I talked about there being a few metrics that make this market a little bit different than it was this summer. One of them was days on market. The other one is the percent sold to list price. So this is the percentage of what you list your home at versus what the sold price is. So at the peak of the market in June, we hit about 106% of the list price is what people were averaging getting, which is where we were seeing those multiple double-digit offers and then just crazy escalations in the prices and everything like that. So we're down to only 101.8%.
Yeah.
Now, that is a steep decline from June, which is good, but it's different. So if we look back historically here, typically we ride right underneath that 100%, like 98, 99%. And then at the peak of the selling season, we might graze that 100% and then come right back down. 2022 had plans of its own. It just skyrocketed and went full force all the way and hit that 106%. We do not want it to stay there. That is not sustainable. It's stressful. There's a lot of issues with that. So we are good with this one coming down. But just again, as you're entering this market right now, just know that it's different. Again, take it with a grain of salt. 5 offers versus 20 offers and how much potentially you're getting over. Again, this is an average. So some people are getting under asking. Some people are getting asking. Some people are still getting crazy over asking offers. But this is just kind of that bird's eye view of what to expect. And then you can dive into your specific price points, your specific county, your specific neighborhood, and just really set yourself up for success. So as a buyer, you're not throwing, again, the kitchen sink when you don't need to. And a seller, when you're setting proper expectations so you can feel really good about the offers that you're getting.
When we look at averages, there's numbers above the average and there's numbers below the average, and that's how you get to the average, right? It's just kind of in the middle. So think of the number of homes that sold for at or under list price in 2021, and how much over and how aggressive buyers had to get in order to stretch that up to 106%.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. I don't want to go back to that game. We're prepared for it if it goes there, right? We've got the tools in our toolbox to make it happen, but certainly can be stressful on both sides. So we'll see. If I'm going to make another prediction, I'm going to make this prediction with the hope that I'm wrong. I think we're going to see another mountain like this in 2022 because of the low inventory that we have. And the one caveat to that might be what interest rates do. Now,
Yep.
from what I'm hearing, interest rates are projected to go up. But if they go up, we might be talking about an eighth or a quarter of a percent, and that's not going to slow down that demand nearly enough. I mean, if they jumped way up to 6%, then that might change things. But I just don't anticipate they're going to double the interest rates.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the most interesting stat about this graph is that in the $1 million to $2 million price point, the over asking offers were at 102%. A little bit bonkers. But all the way up to 3 million, 97%. That's pretty incredible. So I hate to agree. I think Matt's correct. I hope maybe it's a smaller mountain, but it's going to be another, the Denver Metro Association of Realtors is saying, caution, extreme sellers market. I'm like, well, what are we in now? So I think it's going to be another very competitive year ahead of us as far as that goes.
So if we're already in an extreme seller's market and they're talking about it going to an extreme seller's market, like we got to come up with a new title for it. It's the extreme seller's market.
Let's make an X. Now we're extreme.
Extreme, right? Yeah. Pretty crazy. So, Brenna, you're typically not much for making predictions, which I appreciate, right? It's just the facts. I'm sure people would pay a lot of attention if we were just making outlandish claims and doing that. But, we want to be the source for real data, real information. I'll throw out some projections, and I'll absolutely throw out the fact that, hey, I'm smart enough to know that I could be wrong.
Yeah. And I hope that, and like we've said before, this information is supposed to help you feel more confident as you're entering the market, either as a buyer or a seller. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of social media that can make it really intimidating about what you're walking into on either side. So I would just encourage you, again, this is Greater Metro Denver, but if you're seriously considering buying or selling, reach out to Matt. I'm happy to help as well. Get that local data. We can pull down to your county, your zip code, and just get some numbers so you can feel really confident and have a game plan to hopefully ease some of that stress within a very emotional situation most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Want to be here as a resource to help out. Now, as this is take 2 in our video, right? Because we had some tech issues, which I'm 99% sure I figured out the cause of, which wasn't Brenna. We're going to go back to our question, right? And asked you this as we launched it. We're in the Christmas season, Brenna. Your favorite Christmas songs?
Carol of the Bells and Sound of Music.
Sound of Music?
Oh, no. Silent Night. Jeez. Not Sound of Music.
No, I think, Sound of Music's got some great songs to it. Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm with you on the Sound of, or the Silent Night. You got me twisted on it too. Silent Night, one of my favorites. Absolutely. So for those that are watching, right, drop a comment. Are you one that likes to listen to Christmas music starting in October, the retail environment you just love? Or are you like me, which I think I was traumatized from my years in retail, and I'm like, let's turn on Christmas Eve, and then by dinner time Christmas Day we've turned it off, and it's back to my normal station. So Brenna, you are definitely the former on that. You're long want to listen to Christmas music all month long
After Thanksgiving.
after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
no, again, big thank you to Land Title for putting together the stats. Brenna, I appreciate you, making the investment to learn the information here and to be able to convey it in bite-sized chunks so that we can make sense of this, right? Because it's just all graphs or data, which may not make sense without context. So as always, just thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me and happy to help. And I hope everyone has a happy holiday season and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll see everybody back in January as we wrap up. Look at what the whole year did for 2021 in our Denver metro real estate market. So, and thanks everybody.
Bye.